Good morning to one and all watching us. In this segment of our Indian social and political dialogue, India discusses. Today, our topic would be the education system in India. We will be having some faces which are the most active voices on social media, on political issues, and on social issues. We are joined by Mr. Shishir Thadani, who is a software engineer from the US, and to Mr. Prakash Ramesh, who is a software engineer, and he's joining us from Chennai. I welcome you both to this session. So
Thank
as the
you.
topic
Welcome to you too.
goes, thanks a lot, sir.
Thanks,
So
sir.
as the session goes, the topic of the today debate is education system in India. Education has been a problem in our country, and lack of it has been blamed for all sorts of evils for hundreds of years. Even Rabindranath Tagore wrote lengthy articles about how Indian education system needs to be changed. Funny thing is that from the colonial times, few things have changed. We have established IITs, IIMs, law schools, and other institutions of excellence. Students now routinely score 90% marks, so that even students with 90 plus percentage find it difficult to get into colleges of their choice. Isn't that an irony? Rote learning still plagues our system. Students study only to score marks in exams and sometimes to crack exams like IIT JEE, AIMS or PLAT. The colonial masters introduced education system in India to create clerks and civil servants, and we have not deviated much from it, that pattern till today. And that's the irony, my friends. They say a sound education system is a foundation of a sustained growth of a country. But what if the education system is full of loopholes and does not provide any equality? What if you have an ailing education system? Shishirji, my first question is to you. One of the biggest problems with the education system in India is that it focuses on cramming the textbook information, and the best crammers are rewarded by the system. Will you please elaborate on this?
Yes, that's a good question. I would partially agree. I would partially agree with what you're trying to suggest, and also disagree. Um, Certainly, on the negative side, uh, there might be too much emphasis on learning too much.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, what I would suggest is, from what I've seen in the US, people graduate high school with maybe even less scientific mathematical knowledge than 10th graders in India. So, we can sort of complain about the fact that the Indian education system encourages rote learning. But some of that is real learning. So not all of it is rote learning. It just depends. Some people might learn the same subject by rote, but some people actually learn it. And let me give you a concrete example. Some years back, I was watching a school education program in California on public TV, on community TV. And this was from Silicon Valley, which is supposed to be the world capital for high technology. And there were two math teachers from the Californian school system. And there was a very simple problem that I remember we had solved in our 10th grade. And it was drawing a curve. It was a cubic equation, and you map it out. Now, I don't know if you've studied any cubic equations, but cubic equations, if the value is positive, the curve will become parabolic on the right direction.
Yeah.
And when the value is negative, it will become parabolic on the left direction. And then there'll be some movement in between depending on the other parameters of the equation. Now what happened is that one of the math teachers got confused and drew the wrong curve on public TV, on community TV. So this is a problem which I had not seen in years, and I remembered it and I realized, oh yeah, we did this in our 10th grade and he's made a mistake. The other teacher sitting next to him couldn't correct him. So we can mock our system, but I don't think something like that could ever happen in India. I mean, the majority of math teachers that I knew in my school would never have made that mistake, because being able to draw a curve of a cubic equation is not a very difficult thing. And so I'm just pointing out that you can have an education system which perhaps has too much, requires students to learn too much, which might be the case in India. But on the flip side, you have an American education system that is so liberal and so lax that even teachers cannot solve problems that a 10th grader should be able to solve in India. Now, I'm not saying all math teachers in the US are bad. I'm not saying that. But the fact that these two teachers were able to be on national television and not solve this problem correctly is quite a huge indictment of the US education system, that at some level it is too liberal, it is too lax. Having said that, I would point out that I think there are some things in the US where people are taught a little better because perhaps they do more outings. For instance, if you're a biology student, you'll go to a park, you'll have some nature trips, so there'll be the practical element might be slightly more interactive between the teachers and students. And I think there we could have more of it in India, but again, the better schools are doing that even in India. So I think we should generalize about all schools. There are some schools where there are good labs, there is an opportunity to experiment. So I think it all depends. I would not. I think India is too large a country to make gross generalizations. There are problems, but I think it's also surprisingly not bad and surprisingly very good in certain respects. So we should sort of give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
And so, relating to this subject, I'll point out something else. When you look at statistics,
Yeah.
I've been looking at numbers recently, and I looked at numbers from Madhya Pradesh, from Assam, and these are not the most advanced states. But even in these states, I noticed that about 35% of the eligible population, somewhere between 30 to 35% of the eligible population, is appearing for the 12th exam. Now, that sounds pretty low compared to the Western world, but you have to keep in mind that in the US, most people will not attain that level of knowledge till first year in university. So, fewer people are graduating at that level in India, but that is because the exams are tougher, the curriculums are tougher, and they have to deal with more difficult problems to pass. Whereas in the US, it's easier. They don't have even a 12th grade exam. Teachers have the liberty to pass students at their discretion in the high school. There is no national exam. So that is why the universities insist on things like GRE. And if you look at the GRE, one reason why Indian students have such an easy time being admitted into the US is because they do pretty well in the GRE. So it's very rare that you see Indians from all over the country, from colleges that are not very well known, that are able to get admission into postgraduate courses, or even they do their masters from small universities and are admitted for PhDs, and they get their PhDs. So obviously, at some level, the Indian education system is good enough because so many Indians are able to come to the US without a problem. I'll share something else, and that is that for instance, you take I have a childhood friend who was my neighbor as a child. He did physics. He was at the IIT. He switched from engineering to physics. He went on to get a PhD in physics. Today, both he and his wife are professors at Ohio State University, and he spent about maybe 3 years at TIFR in Mumbai. And so I asked him, what does he how would he compare his experience at Ohio State, which is one of the top 10 physics universities in the US, with TIFR? And he said, Shishir, the quality of students at TIFR was much, much better than Ohio State. He said, my PhD students were so good, I hardly had to do any hand-holding for them. At Ohio State, I have to do a lot of hand-holding for my PhD students. They need much more help to, do their PhDs. On the other hand, he said the faculty is excellent because it's from all over the world. Now, the thing is, Ohio State will be ranked based on the quality of its faculty, not on the quality of the students. It will not be ranked based on. So, for instance, so based on just this testimonial, now maybe it's just one person's opinion, but he said this in all seriousness, and I have no doubt that he was being accurate, that quality of students, PhD students at TIFR is better than quality of PhD students at Ohio State. But a lot of people in India will not choose TIFR, but they will choose Ohio State simply because Ohio State is the US. So I'm just, pointing this out. The second thing I'll point out is that my friend did such great work at TIFR that he won an international award for his research. And the other interesting thing is that this is during the previous NDA government. The previous NDA government was scouting for people who were working in certain advanced fields of physics, and he was specially invited to come back to TIFR. And so when he told them, he said, look, my wife is also a physicist. He said, okay, both of you will be given positions at TIFR, come back. So I would just point out that, we have some very good universities even in India, but sometimes they're not given the respect they deserve simply because the general impression is the US is always better, even when it is not. I'll give you my personal experience. I was admitted into a PhD program at Yale University. Now at Yale University, there was no criterion for faculty members for becoming PhD advisors. You could choose anybody, even if it was completely inexperienced. Now that is not true at Indian universities. A young assistant professor will not be allowed to be a PhD guide unless he has guided enough people with masters and he has published a certain amount and so on. Now a university like Yale, which is so highly ranked, had absolutely no screening, no criterion for PhD advisors. As a result, I chose a really bad PhD advisor and I didn't get a PhD. But if I'd been at the IIT, I'm pretty sure I would have got a PhD because I would have got much more direction. Now at Yale, there were other faculty members who were very good, who would have been good PhD advisors. But Yale did not have any ranking that said so-and-so can be a PhD advisor, so-and-so cannot. And they should have had it. Because as a young student, as a young PhD student, I have no idea who's really qualified to be an advisor and who's not. So this is another example where a university like Yale, my actual experience at Yale was much worse than what it was at the IIT.
Yeah.
There was much more favoritism at Yale. There was much more randomness and arbitrariness in how it was run. The IITs were very organized and the professors were very fair, and I didn't experience any favoritism at the IIT.
Okay, Shishirji, thanks a lot for sharing your experience. It was much needed because it gave an edge to the debate. Prakashji, now moving on to you. How do you think that the system of reservations has affected the Indian education system?
Okay. System of reservations, this is pretty similar to the debate we had last time.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much, yeah. See, as I told you, as I quoted in my last debate itself, when you enter into a graduate course in India, okay, probably a postgraduate course, that is the point of time where everything breaks down for you as an education, as someone who wants to be educated. The person sitting next to you does not seem to have the same capabilities. The staff in front of you does not seem to have the capabilities. It's not even equipped to teach you much more than what you know probably. The system of reservation has slowly killed and is responsible for probably a big brain drain in our country. We have been facing many issues based on this. Just take a simple example of what is going on in IIT Madras right now. The Ambedkar Periyar circle,
Yeah.
who seems to be talking about casteism. Come on, you're in IIT, guys. You should not be talking about such things. Casteism,
Yeah.
where does it come? See, take example of Periyar. He was the one who fought for creation of Dravidistan on similar terms of Pakistan. He went to Mountbatten, literally begged him, please create Dravidistan, please free Tamil Nadu from India. And he is a complete anti-national fellow, anti-Hindu. He was the one who broke Vinayaka idols, who garlanded Rama with slippers. and so on and so forth. See, I'm not trying to say he's an anti-Hindu, so I hate him. He's someone who creates communal tension, and there are people in Tamil Nadu who praise him and call him an educationalist, a rationalist, socialist. I mean, just some list. They add it and they say, okay, this is a great guy. Let's just give him some name. And people from IIT Madras, they are this guy, I mean, the person who is creating this whole nuisance at IIT Madras. From what sources I know, he's a communist, and he wanted to create this issue at IIT so that he can disturb the existing members and create and stop the good work which is currently being doing by HRT. So reservation somehow, has let these people inside, and they are taking charge. They are trying to push everything and drive their own agendas inside educational institutions and ruin our top institutes. That is one thing. But one other thing which I would like to point from my personal experience, your previous question that you just asked, Richard,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
Indian education system, that are we doing a lot of mugging up and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So previously, I was working with one of the big banking organizations, and my manager was from America, and he's a green card holder. He has around 20 years of work experience. So we were just sitting. We were sitting right next to each other, and every day as I just come, log into my system. We have 6 to 7 passwords. We have a Windows password, we have a VM password, we have
Yeah.
application password, and so on and so forth. So for all these passwords, I did not need to open my book and check. I came in, all are different passwords. I just came, type in. Okay, first level gone, second level gone, third level gone. This guy, my manager, sitting right next to me, he was shocked. They're like, "How do you remember so many passwords?" I said, "What is there? I can tell you what is log 2, log 3, log 4, log 5, up to I told him there are so many things I can." He said, "My kids can't even remember the basic things," and they were both educated in the US. There are very funny examples he's giving. I was like shocked. Is there the kind of things going on in US? So just to tell, like, yeah, we do have some problems in India, but they are not based upon the quality of the students. It's just based upon the process, and as you said, the reservation that has been brought in,
Yeah.
the criteria, selection criteria. This is all the issues. I don't think there is much issue in the quality of the education and quality of the students. Rightly pointed out by Shivji.
Actually, Rahul, if I can come back to this, I'd like to address one new point.
Yeah, for sure, sure. Come in.
Okay. Many years ago, I got very interested in the history of science and technology in India,
Yeah.
and also rational philosophy in India. Now, it's interesting that, Periyar is being mentioned as a rationalist. We have more rational philosophy in ancient India than probably anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Have any of you studied some basic physics, like Newton's third law of physics?
Yes.
Every action has an equal and opposite
reaction. Yeah.
Right. Now, if you read this law, intuitively it makes sense because you throw a ball at a wall and the ball bounces back, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, if you throw an egg at a wall, the egg breaks and the yolk sticks to the wall. You throw a piece of clay or plasticine at a wall, it will stick to the wall. If you throw something at a glass window, the glass will break. If you throw a ball at another ball on the ground, the ball that is being hit will move. So you see, in reality, this one law of physics doesn't predict anything. It's a very abstract law. And to really understand what is going to happen, you need to know the property of the two materials involved, right? And you don't even need to know any physics. Even a child knows that if you throw a ball at a wall, it'll come back. But if you throw an egg at a wall, it'll break. I mean, you don't need to know a lot of physics for that, right? And I'm bringing this up because in our ancient texts, all learning was connected to reality. Now, if you read a lot of physics textbooks, even in the US, now we say that, Indian Indians have to wrote a lot, but I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
American textbooks are the hardest to learn anything from. The same subject, whenever I have seen an Indian textbook and an American textbook, the Indian textbook actually is more explanatory.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would point out is that if we took any phenomenon and read how it was explained in the ancient texts, it's even more intuitive. So one of the things that I would point out is that, again, you look at, I remember when I was at the IIT, I would hate American textbooks because they would give all the material, but you would learn nothing from them because they were not intuitive, very theoretical. There was not a good plan to make you understand the concepts. So you had to struggle with it. Often I would understand that material after 4 or 5 years after experiencing life. Even though at that time I passed the exam, but I actually understood the material later. And so what I would point out is that I think sometimes we prescribe, American textbooks are prescribed because maybe they have the latest material, or maybe they follow the coursework that is followed in US universities. But oftentimes I have seen that when an Indian textbook is available, it's actually a better textbook. That's number one. Number two, what I'd really like is that in our ancient system, people didn't just learn, they also learned the process of learning. They learned how to learn. And we are not teaching that anymore. For instance, at one point, every educated Indian had to study the Nyaya Sutras, no matter what philosophical system you came from and what particular branch of Hindu philosophy you believed in or wanted to follow. Everybody had to study the Nyaya Sutras. Now, what is the Nyaya Sutras? At the basics, they were these texts that were supposed to help you to dispense justice, right? Now, as you can understand, to dispense justice, you first have to know the truth. You have to know how to figure out the truth. And what I would make a very general statement. All education is actually trying to figure out what is the truth, whether you read it from a book or whether you do research. So this material is no longer being taught. For instance, the Nyaya Sutra has an excellent chapter on false ways of arguing. It's a very good book on figuring out when two people can have an intelligent debate, when they have certain agreement on fundamental principles. One person says that the earth is flat and I'm not willing to believe anything. And the other person says, no, based on observation, the earth is a sphere. It's like then you cannot debate because one person believes it's flat and is not willing to change his or her mind. So I think we could improve our education system if we did a couple of things. One is we went back to some of the intuitive traditions of the past. We connected theoretical physics and everything theoretical with something real world, with analogies from the real world that ordinary people can understand. And then we need to spend at least one course for every person who goes to school, or not in school, at least at college, of how to learn to study, how to learn to acquire knowledge, how to figure out what is the truth, and how to argue correctly. I think if we do that, then we will have an excellent education system. Better than any other country in the world, perhaps.
Yeah. Totally agreed with you, sir. As you pointed out some reforms, I would like to ask you, what is your take on the issues of the teachers? Because as in the case of teachers, they are the ones who are teaching the kids, but they are more than frustrated. They don't have basic qualification. They don't know who is the president of the country. They don't know how to write. That's the majority of the teachers in India. If you go to UP, Bihar, they are not even BA pass, and they are molding the future of India. So don't you think that there should be something like the Indian Teaching Service or something that can actually make a parameter to which the teacher should enter? Then only they are qualified to be a teacher.
Well, actually we do have the B.Ed exam for teachers.
Yeah.
So I don't think the problem is as severe. I think it varies from state to state, and even within state it varies from city to city and village to village. For instance, in Haryana, you cannot become a teacher unless you have a B.Ed. So I don't think you can say that all over India this is happening, because some states are requiring all the teachers to have B.Ed degrees. There are also, I don't know if you know this, but there are district teacher training institutions, and several of them, the the staff is pretty good. So again, I think the newspapers tend to sensationalize what is wrong.
Yeah.
Newspapers don't report what is working okay or what is good. So let me sort of bring that out. Number one. Number two, let me give you a real life example.
Yeah.
One of the scientists, engineer scientists on the mission to Mars, the mission to Mars, which was very successful.
Yeah.
One of the scientists who wrote the software to communicate with Mars, or wrote one of the modules to communicate with Mars, he got a degree from NIT Jalandhar. But he grew up in a village near Tandla in UP. Now, he also went to a village school. Eventually, he went to an NIT, and eventually he joined ISRO. But I want to point out that he went to a village school. So obviously his village school could not have been so bad if at the end he could be on the Mars mission team. And this is a UP village. So of course, you see, you have to. So even in our villages, some villages have good high schools.
Yeah.
Likewise, in every city, there are better high schools. There are good government high schools. There are the Kendriya Vidyalayas. There are the CBSE high schools are all pretty good because you look at CBSE results, they're generally excellent. So again, the quality is very varied, and I think there is a problem where in some villages the quality of teachers is poor.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we do have villages where right up to the high school the quality is not bad because these students are able to join an institution like a National Institute of Technology, Jalandhar, and then eventually join ISRO and do successful work on the Mars mission. So again, I think we have to look at it case by case, and I think what we first need is good data on where the system is working and where it is not working. See, part of the problem is, as you all know, our journalists are looking for sensational journalism, and they often don't even tell the truth. So we keep reading about these horror stories, of how bad things are, but we don't read about what things are working. We don't have a study which says, okay, 30% of schools in villages are really bad, or 30% of teachers in this district are really bad. We need that kind of categorization so we know where the problems are so we can address them. If you overgeneralize about a problem, you will never be able to solve it because then it's too vague and unspecific.
Yeah, totally agree. Prakashji, do you support the cause of the Indian teaching services that a teacher should basically have a level so that they can be a teacher or not?
Yes, I think to a certain extent, you do need to get through some educational basic qualification to be a teacher in India. But post that, you should have to be. See, it's a little confusing for me here at this point because when I was in school, okay, most of my teachers were 15 years experienced, 20 years experienced. They had a firm grip and they knew what to teach. But the moment I entered engineering, my final year, my senior was my teacher. So we used to sit and crack jokes and at final year and see you are my senior and now you are my teacher. Why should I listen to you? So this
Yeah.
was the scenario. Like I mean, Shishir rightly said that in UP or in Haryana you should yeah. In Haryana you should finish your B.Ed and come enter into teaching. But in Tamil Nadu, I don't think that's the case because every senior becomes your next electronics professor or instrumentation professor or computer science professor. Who knows what? So yes, there should be a minimum kind of qualification. But post that, the teacher should have some sort of scenario like what we have for doctors. They should go to certain villages and districts and should begin their career there. They should have some sort of good
Yeah.
interaction with students
Yeah.
and a variety of students. Like
Yeah.
the metros are not India. The metros and cosmos are not
Yeah.
India. So if you really need to gather some experience as a teacher, you should go to towns and villages and teach students over there, communicate with them, get to know what is their line of thinking, and then probably you can climb up the ladder slowly. That's how it should be, like what we have for doctors. So
Yeah.
that is the
So
scenario.
don't you think that there should be a minimum wages level also set for the teachers? Because I have heard that in some schools they are paid as much as just 5,000 per month, but they are overloaded with work. So don't you think that the government should set a minimum wage salary for them?
That is totally in private schools. I believe so.
Yeah, in
Because
in
yeah,
private schools only. Yeah.
yes. That's because again, the private schools in India to a certain extent they are driven based on the amount of money they are going to make. So they make sure they crush their teachers and make sure they train them a lot of work. But
Yeah.
you see, teachers working in government schools, they're really happy-go-lucky because, as you said, reservation comes into play here as well. You
Yeah.
need reservation. You need to be from a certain section of the community to get jobs. A general reserve person won't be as, he won't be as lucky as another person from another community. That again is the problem here. He or she has to go to a private school, get squeezed for a couple of years, gather some experience, and if lucky, he or she will move on to the next level. And if she is not, he or she is not lucky again, they have to get through it. That is the problem, and they are not able to sustain themselves, and they take it out on the students.
Yeah, actually, Rahul, one clarification. I was talking about teachers at the school level in Haryana. I think there is a separate problem, and I agree completely, which is that in a lot of the colleges, in engineering colleges, the professors don't even have master's degrees.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be a minimum qualification if you're going to be teaching undergraduate students.
Yeah.
And I think if somebody has just got an undergraduate degree and just 1 or 2 years experience, then we have the scenario that we just heard about, which is just somebody has just finished his
The
engineering
senior.
program and a
Yeah.
year or two later is teaching
Yeah. He's teaching.
that makes no sense. And so I think now I think one thing one thing that has been done, and again some colleges are doing it and some are not, which is there is a general directive that every college must have a website and they must post their departmental faculty on the website. Is like I forget what it's called, but there's a guideline on what all has to be reported, and you can actually see that if you want to study mechanical engineering, what is the faculty in that department, how many have PhDs, how many have master's degrees, and how many have how many years of experience. So I think with that information, what I would suggest is that if there are any parents on this show, or if there are any students who are thinking of going to engineering college, please check out the website of the engineering college that you're planning to go to. Do some research on the departments that you're interested in. Look at the quality of the faculty. And you will see that the quality of the faculty varies from college to college. Some colleges will have almost all, will have at least most people with master's degrees. Because, or like I remember there's some colleges that I tracked 5 years ago where the entire faculty was made up of undergraduates. But now at least they've all taken the trouble to get master's degrees. So now you look at the same college, same department 5 years later, and almost everybody has a master's degree. So some colleges will hire you with an undergraduate degree, but with the stipulation that you will complete your master's in 3 years or 4 years. Other colleges will only hire you with a master's, and they will only have undergraduates to teach very junior courses or basic first-year engineering courses, not fourth-year engineering. So I think that is a serious issue, and I personally think that for final year engineering courses, you must have a master's degree, otherwise you should not be teaching those courses.
Yeah.
Advanced courses in engineering should not be taught by people with just undergraduate degrees.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's one reason why this has happened is that the engineering colleges have become like factories. They are not like, institutions of advanced learning. Some of them are literally factories. They're coming up and they're hiring. They can't get, and they're coming up in very small towns. That's the other thing, which in the long run might be a good thing because it is really democratizing the engineering education. And in places like Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, not only do you have engineering colleges in small towns of size 100,000, you even have engineering colleges in towns of size 20,000 and 15,000. So, when you have a town of that size, how can you get faculty members with postgraduate degrees? You'll simply not get that level of faculty. And if you look at California, California doesn't have, California's population is half of Tamil Nadu's population, but it has 1/10 the number of engineering colleges that Tamil Nadu has. So, naturally, California will not have the same faculty problem because it has much fewer colleges. It is not trying to, and you won't have colleges in very, very small towns or in rural areas or something like that. So, this is both, on the one hand, you can say it's very democratic, and over time, some of these colleges, if they improve, it's not a bad thing. But in the short run, we have to then struggle with this problem of, faculty that is very junior, very inexperienced.
Yeah. Yeah, Prakashji, now moving over to you. Prakashji, don't you think that the skill-based education system in India is often neglected? Because in the schools, whenever we study, we are often being just made to ratify whatever is written in the notebooks and do it as a practical and write it down on a sheet of paper. We are never being taken to labs. That's the case in most of the India. So don't you think that the practical education should be a must and mandatory for every school to provide to its kids?
Yes, I agree to a certain extent only though, but
Yeah,
because there are many schools which still take up the practicals very
yeah,
seriously. But again, as what Shishirji pointed out, too much of practical and too much of liberalization of education would result
yeah,
to in creating a generation of just people who have touched some pipettes and burettes, and they're like, okay, yeah, serious science, yeah, so on and so forth. Uh, I think what happens to be the problem is streamlining after a certain point of time. When a kid finishes his 10th or 12th, post that there is no serious counseling by the school as to what he
yeah,
wants to become, what does he feel, what do you really want? Because previously, even very old age gurukulas when we were studying, uh, the, in the gurukulas we had people sitting, and there was one branch for Vedas, there was one branch for swordsmanship, there is one branch where people fight with gadas. That's what I read from text, and that's what I'm quoting. But
yeah,
the counseling is not happening. Even an 8th standard student needs to we should ask him, what do you want to
yeah,
become? What do you think is a good future for you? We have to make him take some aptitude test,
yeah,
for which he will give right answers. Okay, if
yeah,
probably you give the same to an engineering college student, he will ask me, what answers do you want me to put so that I can enter into the company?
yeah,
we should ask the kids, what do you
yeah,
want? Because that can be captured only at a very young age, and then we
yeah,
can nurture them from then on. Once
yeah,
we reach a particular age, we are actually a little lost. We think, okay, what should I do so that I can compete
yeah,
in this? What should I do so that I can train myself to be a software engineer, or so
yeah,
on and so forth? That is the real problem, is my
yeah,
concern. A lot of streamlining should be done at school. Uh,
yeah,
a lot of government schools should be streamlined, and private schools should be on par with them. And one more thing, I think somewhere Shishiji pointed out. I mean, Shishiji, or you said pointed out regarding students from other towns and villages. Take the CBSE board for examples. Results. As far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, more toppers have come out from Trichy, Salem, Madurai rather than Chennai. So we need to go back to our roots, make things stronger at the roots, and once we come to our engineering level or arts level or CA level, probably then things will change. I was really happy when one of the toppers told that he wanted to be a CA, not an engineer, from Tamil Nadu. I was really
yeah,
happy. My God, this guy has some sense.
yeah,
Really, he wants to she. I'm sorry, it's not a he, it's a she. She wanted to be a CA, which is very unlikely in the case of Tamil Nadu, because it's always engineer, go do masters US, come back India software engineer, so on and so forth. There is a very predefined formula that has been set for
yeah,
the past 50, 60 years. Follow the formula, earn. That's what you have to do. One more example I wanted to quote was, it's a really sad news. Two I think this year's IIT JEE topper, who got into IIT Computer Science in Kharagpur. I'm not really sure of this data, but I heard in the news that he quit IIT and he has gone to Stanford to pursue physics as a higher education. This sort of brain drain should be stopped.
Yeah, yeah,
We should encourage. See, there are people in 10th and 12th. My batchmates, many people wanted to be physicists, many people wanted to be chemists, many people wanted to be mathematicians, future mathematicians. But once they come into college, their level of the kind of thinking, there's a sudden change. Okay, I need to support my parents. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to get married at 26. I need to get a house. And so this should not. This should be streamlined at a very young age. So if that happens, probably skill-based trading would come into places. My view.
yeah. That was a wonderful analysis, Prakashji. In fact, that counseling wala stuff is really a thing that is itching on to our education system. Shashirji, now over to you. Don't you think that the counseling is must for the students at the age of 11th and 12th, as Prakash pointed out? Because most of us are basically clueless about what to do. We just have 3, 4 options like go for doctorate, go for engineering, or your future is gone. So your take on that, please.
Actually, I think Prakash ji has said it very well. I couldn't
Yeah.
say it better.
Yeah.
And I think he's made a point I agree with wholeheartedly, and I'll just I would say I would say we shouldn't even wait till 11th or 12th, because you have to choose the stream even before that. So I think the counseling should be graded, so you get a little bit of exposure to things in the 9th grade, or before the 10th board exam. Then you get
Yeah.
some more after that. So I think depending as a child grows up, the child needs to be exposed to different professions. And I think we also have to get out of this mindset that only these 4, 5 careers are worth it, because actually there are other careers where if you do well, these days salaries are going up in many fields. So it is quite possible to be a physicist or a chemist, or because these days private companies, for instance, drug companies are hiring chemists and paying very good salaries. If you go on to do a PhD and do research now, the government is increasing the grants for these. At all levels, salaries have gone up, so it is much easier to live with different careers today than it was maybe in my time, 25, 30 years ago. So I think that's the other thing that counselors have to tell students. Okay, look, there are good salaries even in alternative fields. Don't think that the only good salaries are in 1 or 2 fields. That's the other thing I would do. Third thing I want to mention is that actually this is something that was done about I think 5, 6 years ago, and I had actually written an article about this, and other people began echoing that, and so this actually led to a unique kind of institution which is unique in the world, which is Indian Institute of Scientific Education and Research, and these are new institutions that have just come up.
Yeah.
And we have 5, 6 of them. We have, I think the best known one is in Pune and Kolkata, and one near Kolkata. And then Bhopal, Chandigarh, Thiruvananthapuram, Bhubaneswar have others, and there might be a few more that are going to come up in the future. I think Andhra is going to get one. But my point is that these are institutions, these are the equivalents of the IITs for sciences. And one of the things that these institutions are trying to do, they have not, I don't know how successfully they've done it, is that if you look at what is coming out of the cutting edge research in the West today, is not in pure physics or pure chemistry, or it's usually physical chemistry, or it's chemical physics or biophysics or biochemistry. It's where multiple fields are being fused. So you have mathematical geology, and you have a lot of interdisciplinary scientific research happening, and these are institutions that are geared for that. So so this is something that has happened at the high end, but I was reading some of the comments of people considering joining these institutions, and a lot of people would say, my interest is in science, I love this idea, but what kind of job will I get? And then people start complaining that I'm not, people are not coming and giving 1 lakh job offers at at these institutions. So then, did I make a mistake by joining this institution? Now, so again, people have to also look at their future. Is we need to encourage people to do what they love, because if you do what you love, in time you will also make money doing what you love. Whereas if you sometimes choose something just for the money, then somewhere in your middle age you'll go through a crisis and say, I'm making the money, but I'm not at all satisfied because my heart is not in it. So again, I will just go back to what Prakash said, counseling at a young age, and also make people aware of different options, different
Yeah.
things that you can study, and the rewards in different fields, and also the possibility of earning a decent living also. We need counselors that can address all these things. And even maybe counsel the parents, because sometimes the child is ready, but the
The
parents
parents
are
are
bullying
here.
the child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Prakash, now moving on to you. Don't you think that in the race of sciences, where we are having too many colleges opening up for science streams and all, social science is being left behind? Because in this age, the social science is the must. Because we need psychologists, we need sociologists, we need anthropologists. Because we have such a great history, and in India, for sake the history is not being preserved. In Europe, even if we have a stone, it is being preserved, and let's say it is being put up in the museum and said, "Wah wah, hame kya mil gaya." But in India, we have a fort, but it is being neglected. Don't you think that the system should be tilted towards history and social sciences also, at par with the sciences?
I couldn't agree less on this topic because my passion is on history, and I really wanted to be an Indologist.
Yeah, same pinch. Yeah,
But I ended up going into software engineering. Okay, that's personal. Let's leave it.
yeah,
So yes, the problem lies here is again, as you see, the political scenario in India around 1950s. I mean, 19. We have to go back and see independence era and pre-independence era. Uh, let's take the example of Max Muller. Okay,
yeah.
who is Max Muller? What is his qualifications? Uh, did he really read Sanskrit? Big question. I don't think so. I have a research pointed out in one of his latest books called The Truths by Kadosh Iyer, I think. Yeah. So in that book, he clearly pointed out that Max Muller has not even finished the basic undergraduation for Germans. Then he published his work on Indology. Then he wrote his book on Sanskrit and proposed the Aryan and Dravidian theory. He did not even read Sanskrit. He just knew what is Sanskrit, and a couple of his teachers, or like at that point of time in Europe, the education was so that it was on a grade-based system. You can read any optional subject you want. So he chose Sanskrit. Went to a couple of people who knew what Sanskrit means. He read some books on Panchatantra, which was translated into German, not even the original text. Okay, he read the book translated into German, and and then he wrote what we read in history. And our
That's
communists are our communists are so happy. See, Max Muller. I like Max Muller. That's what they would like to say. But the problem is, when a student is fascinated about this history and sciences, when he goes to the next level, when he clears his 12th exam, he does not see any scope, or probably even if he sees some scope and he goes to the respective institution and gets his degree, he is stopped by his professors who are driven by agenda. Because one of
yeah,
my friends, he is a historian, and he finished his arts in history, and he went out to work on archaeological surveys, where his superior was a communist, and he stopped him from trying to write the truth. That is one of the biggest problems that we are facing right now,
yeah,
but it can slowly break. It is breaking, and it will break, is my faith in what is it destined to be the future of India. But
yeah,
yes, these should be encouraged. We need more people who should be interested in these sciences and
yeah.
try and pursue it as we go ahead. Personally, even if there are not institutions, we can still lay the foundation for the institutions which will come up in a
Yeah.
point of time.
Yeah, you totally nagged the issue, Prakashji. Thanks a lot for that analysis. Moving on to you, Shishirji, now on this issue.
Well, first, I think I don't think I've first let me say I completely agree with Prakash that history has been killed by ideology in India.
Yeah,
History should be about truth determination, about collecting the truth through and these days there are a lot of scientific aids that help us to date things, to help us to uh, get a more accurate timeline. This we have, like you mentioned anthropology. We have
yeah,
history departments in little towns all over India. We don't have anthropology
yeah,
because anthropology is a bit more sophisticated because you're actually doing something more practical and there is also more science involved there.
yeah,
And so in the West, anthropology is a very sophisticated multidisciplinary field
yeah,
in which not only are you doing history, but you also have some scientific background or some background in understanding scientific techniques, which our mainstream historians are resisting very strongly because then that will bring out the truth, and they have no interest in the truth. They have a vested interest in
yeah,
preventing the truth from coming out. So
yeah,
I completely agree with Prakash that this problem is purely ideological. It's not a question of not emphasis not being there.
yeah,
One thing I will mention is that there are some, it's very interesting. Um, and I hope you'll allow me to use the word secular. If you don't allow me to use it, let me just use secular, but you'll understand what I mean. That
go
secular has
on.
become this tag word
Yeah, yeah,
where you have to believe it has literally become history has become like a religion. You
yeah,
have to repeat what is said by certain ayatollahs of the field, and you cannot say anything outside that. So
yeah,
it's history in India has become religious studies. It is not actually the study of history, but unfortunately, this is also true in the Western world,
yeah,
because the same prejudices that we have in India, after all, the Western world this is the British curriculum. So all these prejudices that we have acquired in the Indian education system have come from the they have come from British colonizers, and this
yeah,
British colonial system thrives in the West even more than it thrives in India. But let me tell you one thing. Um, some years back, I read some papers written by a professor from Jaipur. There was
yeah,
excellent research there. But it did not fit the so-called, it would not have been approved by any JNU professor. So that's why from JNU you're getting only crap, because JNU is one of the worst universities when it comes to history. Likewise, you're getting absolute rubbish from Delhi University and Shimla University and Aligarh University. I can go on and on about the universities that are producing only crap. But
yeah,
Jaipur University happens to be a university that our so-called elites do not respect. However, Rajasthan somehow Rajasthan is one of the few provinces in the northern part of India where the old heritage is still in existence. You
yeah,
have the kingdoms all over Rajasthan. Rajasthan was not totally conquered by the Mughals. So it was very interesting that the professor from Rajasthan, from Jaipur University, had come out with some very thoughtful and very interesting research on caste dynamics in history. And I think in a previous program I had mentioned to you that our current Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Vasundhara Raje, she comes from the royal family of Jhalawar, and in her family alone, there are representatives of 5 castes, including Meenas, Gujars, Jats, Brahmins, and of course the Kshatriyas.
yeah,
So this shows you that this so-called, so I'm just pointing this out that within India, if you go to some of the lesser known universities, you'll be surprised that maybe there the faculty members are actually doing good work because they are allowed to write the truth. Nobody is censoring them.
yeah, yeah,
And I'll give you another example. Modi ji's minister appointed the head of the ICHR, which is the Indian Council of Historical Research, which is the premier research and publication body for history writing in India. And this institution has been completely sabotaged by you know who. We don't have to mention the names, but
Yeah.
if you want one name,
Yeah.
I'll name Romila Thapar, and we'll end it there. But um, but anyway, so he appointed a professor who was teaching history at Warangal University. Nobody had heard of him, and all these the secular elite were furious that he has not published anything. And maybe he had not published anything according to their criterion, because if he had, he would have published crap. But he recently issued a statement, and he said one thing he wants to do is he wants to put the emphasis on the history of science and technology in ancient India. He said, that India has a very rich history in science and technology, which is true. But it has not been documented because, again, a lot of people were not interested in writing about the truth. Now he is making that a priority. So in many ways, he comes from Warangal University, which is not a premier university. It's not of the ranking of a Delhi University or a Shimla University or a Hyderabad University or Kolkata or whatever. But he's obviously sincere because he wants to shift the focus of the ICHR into an area that has been very neglected in the past 50 years. It's really a shame that we are at so many years after independence, almost 70 years after independence, and the history of and the ICHR has devoted so little to this subject. So again, one thing that I would suggest is that we look that maybe with the new government there will be some hiccups, there will be some one step forward, one step backward sometimes, but hopefully things will open up a bit.
Yeah.
And also I think I have learned from my many years of experience that sometimes the universities with the best reputations are the universities doing the least work. And sometimes the universities that are not so well known, you have faculty members doing real, genuine work. So, but I do think that having said that, we need to revive our history departments, help them become truth-seeking departments. But I think the second thing we need is we actually have a shortage of colleges that offer anthropology.
Yeah.
And because anthropology is a multidisciplinary course, and it should be offered at colleges that have good science background, good geological background, because you'd have to study geology, you have to study geography. So we have actually geography is being taught at many colleges all over the country. So places that have good departments in geography and history, we can add an anthropology department there.
Yeah. Yeah. So Shishirji, the last question, it has been posted to me by many viewers, that why isn't any Indian university being ranked at par with the US universities and the UK universities, but we still are producing the global leaders? So what is the reason behind we are not ranked in the QS World Rankings as high as the Brits and the US universities are?
Okay, couple things.
Yeah.
The first thing is that in these rankings there are both objective criterion and subjective criteria.
Yeah.
Now there is nothing that an Indian university can do to, when there is a bias in the subjective criterion, then there's nothing an Indian university can do about it, and so we should not really obsess over that. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I would point out that some of even the objective criterion have certain factors that India will take time to overcome. For instance, if you look at the history of the modern university,
Yeah.
Indian universities, India has universities that were very ancient, but then as a result of conquest from outside, these universities were destroyed. So they lost continuity. Otherwise, we might have had some of the oldest universities in the world. But as it happened, our universities got destroyed in the middle period. So they had to be revived. But if you look at the history of the modern university, Europe began launching its universities as early as the 15th and 16th century in some cases. For instance, you look at the history of Cambridge, it's a 400, 500-year-old university. Almost every major university in Europe is at least 200-300 years old. Even universities in Eastern Europe, Prague, Warsaw, These are very old universities. They are, there is, I mean, all these universities, they go back 200-300 years. So one is age, and that makes a big difference, because with age, you get to develop your faculty, you get to develop not only the main departments, but sub-departments, interdisciplinary departments, special research centers. So you get to develop a lot of breadth. And if you look at the Nobel Prizes, the Nobel Prize has been around for 100 years. Now, a lot of Indian universities are only 30-40 years old, so they, how can they compete with universities that are that old? That's number one, age. Number two is that the criterion in these rankings in the universities, again, looks at width, depth, breadth, things like that. You look at Indian universities, our best universities, take the IIMs, the IITs, or now the IISRs. These are very specialized institutions. So, for instance, the IISERs, they are specializing in science. They don't have engineering at all. IITs have engineering, and then they have some science. And they have some management courses, but then the IIMs are separate. Now, if you could combine some of these universities, for instance, if we had IIM Ahmedabad combined with the new IIT Gandhinagar and combined with the best science colleges, then we would have a university that could compete. But right now, we do not have universities that can compete because we have broken them up. For some reason, Indian politicians love setting up specialized institutions. So we have different institutions for law, different institutions for chartered accountancy, different institutions for management. Everything is different. And these universities are very small. Faculty members are only 250, 300, 400, 500. You look at these big universities, their faculty members run in thousands. That's number one. Number two, when you look at our big universities, say Delhi University or Mumbai University, the problem with these universities is they're affiliating something like 300 colleges. I think at one point, Chennai University was affiliating something like 400, 500 colleges. Then a university was created in Salem to take the load off. Then a university was created around, to cater to the districts around Vellore. So, Chennai University has been bifurcated many times. But still, our big universities are affiliating so many colleges. And the whole administration system is geared towards the exams for those colleges. So these universities are no longer geared towards excellence in research, higher education, which is what these Western universities are. So we have the whole structure is towards, administration, exams, curriculum. It is distracting from what has become the main purpose at the foreign universities. The other thing that I would point out as this is an indirect fallout of quotas, that since we have so much quota politics, a lot of departments don't even have enough faculty members because you've got all these reservations. You can't get faculty members of that quality based on the reservations. And even though there are general category professors available, you can't hire them because they don't come in the quotas. So you've got departments that are not fully staffed sometimes. Second problem is you're wasting so much time on this politics of quotas and this exam system and so on. You are not upgrading the infrastructure. You look at, say, a university like Allahabad University, which is actually a very old university, and basically the quality is still there. The desire to excel is there, but the physical infrastructure is 50 years behind the times. I can even tell you about the IITs. When I went from the IIT to Yale, the difference between the lab equipment from IIT to Yale was amazing. And I think now, of course, I believe the gap has narrowed and facilities are better. There's more computing equipment available. So everything has improved. But nevertheless, for Indian universities to be highly ranked, we have to keep modernizing the equipment. You have to modernize the infrastructure, which the government, which partly costs a lot of money, and partly the government in the last 10 years has not even been focused on that. The final point I will make is that a lot of universities in the US are funded by grants from their students. This what is called alumni funding.
Yeah.
People graduate from the university and then donate to the university. That tradition has not yet developed in a big way in India. So universities are almost completely dependent on government funding, and even private sector is not really taking the initiative in stepping up. But even with these problems, I've made a suggestion, which is that if the government just diverted 5% of the money that is allocated to all these different social schemes where there is so much leakage and so much corruption, and just allocated it to research, we would have universities that would come back on it. It would be highly ranked. The IITs were actually used to be doing very well, but then the 5 years ago they introduced a double quota on the IITs, and that has affected the rankings of the IITs. So unfortunately, this is the reason. But having said that, I'll point out one other thing, and that is what causes people to be impressed by a university, and that is research in certain cutting-edge areas. Now, one of the things that happens in India is there are government orders, like the government will say, oh, we have this problem. We have this ash problem in coal, or we have this problem with our cement. We want our universities to do research in this area. So the universities research on areas that are relevant to Indian problems, Indian conditions. For the West, these are boring problems. These are not relevant. They are looking at something else. So that's the other thing. The universities might be doing useful research in the Indian context, but abroad there is no respect for that research because they have solved that problem in a different way, or they just don't have that problem. They don't have a resource problem. India, we have a huge resource problem. So that's the other thing, that sometimes research does happen in India, and in fact you'll be amazed that research is happening even at no-name colleges in India. It is even happening at no-name engineering colleges. You will find, I can tell you that there are engineering colleges in small towns like Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh, or a town like, people may not even have heard of it, but small towns I can name you, where there is research happening. And some of it is very derivative research, some of it is actually pretty good research. Even in the areas of nanotechnology, which is like very high technology. At some of the new universities, it is happening. But because these universities do not have the scale, they do not have 100 people doing that research, that recognition is not there of that research. So, the other problem is that, again, the Congress government in the last 10 years did a very poor job of gathering statistics. So we had, we have already, they said our goal is to have 20% tertiary enrollment. Now, they set this goal of 20% tertiary enrollment when the goal was actually already filled. The stupid Congress government didn't even know that it had been achieved already because they were not collecting data properly. They were not counting the numbers properly. There's so many new colleges that have come up, so many private colleges. They just don't know what's going on. There's complete anarchy. There is no proper monitoring. There is no good record keeping. So the UGC, the Universities Grant Commission, doesn't even know what is happening. And then likewise, we have people, our own top professor, saying, oh, China is decades ahead of us. That is bullshit. Sorry to use that expression. But again, because you're not looking at what is happening in India, you're not even counting the numbers properly. You're not even counting the numbers properly. How do you don't even know what is happening in the country. How can you improve the problems? You first have to know what is happening to improve it. So these are some of the things I would say.
That's the hardcore reality that you pointed out. It's the thing we need to survive with. Prakash, the closing comments. How do you think that the education loopholes can be fulfilled? What are the things that you think should be reformed in the structure of education system?
Yes, encourage research. Make sure the truth is pointed out. Cut quotas. Stop political nuisance. And encourage students to come out and publish what they want, what they feel like doing, rather than making a streamlined path, saying that this is the path to make money. Uh, these are some of the basic problems. But I just wanted to quote one example, and you can
Yeah,
consider that as my closing comment. Since we were talking about history and Indology,
yeah,
let me take one simple thing that has been taught to most of us in history. Um, Europeans were the first to reach India in the 14th century, right? So,
yeah,
just a simple research will prove this to be a false statement. Okay, I'm sure many of you have heard of this Brihadishwarar temple at Tanjore. It is supposed to be one of the oldest temple. It was built around the 11th century by Rajaraja Cholan. Okay, Rajaraja
yeah.
Cholan one. So you just go to YouTube, okay, and type Brihadishwarar. There is one video by Phenomenal Travel Videos. Okay, that's a very interesting video I came across of late. Okay, so as per the video, what it states is this temple was built in 11th century by Rajaraja Cholan, and if you look at the temple, it has a stalam, the gopuram, okay, the one which
Yeah,
covers the structure, and the
yeah,
gopuram has a list of all the kings who have ruled the particular area at that point of time during Chola dynasty. But one particular, one particular picture in that Gopuram will amaze you, because that picture is that of a European.
okay,
How
okay,
did it
got
come up there?
it.
Because that particular picture, he's wearing a hat. He is wearing typical European features. He has
Yeah,
a beard. He is
yeah,
wearing three-fourth slacks, and he is
yeah,
having collars. Okay, so who
yeah.
is that? How did Rajaraja Cholan know
Yeah,
what kind of dress Europeans had during the 11th century?
yeah,
Question number one. And also, the same Gopuram had the picture of a Chinese emperor with his typical hairdo, typical Chinese haircut. How did he know? We are talking about thousand hundred years back.
yeah,
Just one video, one. So we are talking about documentation too, right? So
yeah,
during the 10th century, these are the kind of documentations that are available. But once the Englishmen or the colonials invented paper, they set up a special department who sit and write. Okay, what do they write? They write their stories. They write their stories and propagate what they feel is history, what they feel is truth, what they feel is ideology. Take one more example. There is a scenario that, I mean, we all know how. I mean, see, I'm not trying to bring any conflict, regional, religious conflict here, but we all know how Jesus looks like, right?
yeah,
As per paper, Jesus is 6 feet tall. He's handsome. He looks like Tom, has a facial structure of Tom Cruise, clean, the long beard, the hairdo, and so on. But in one of the 11th century or 12th century research documents, it shows that Jesus was a fat person, who was bald, who was stout. So, I mean, I'm just
yeah,
just trying to tell you, the
yeah,
kind of things
yeah,
which they want to propagate, and we have been believing it. That's very sad. What we need to do is just see. Tanjore is 350 kilometers from here. We need one person. Don't we have one historian who can go there, take pictures, write a paper, publish it? That is what needs to be encouraged. We need people to document about the greatness of this country. I'm just talking about history department over here. We need to show them we are better Indologists, because we have the resources. Just go put the paper. All you need to do is just go to YouTube, try Brihadishwara. Everything will come over there. We
yeah,
don't, we don't need to do something great. We just need to streamline things. And I
yeah,
really hope this government does it. There have been some signs, but we are still decades back, because uh, the mentality as such has been that listen to the this mentality needs to be broken down. We need to encourage parallel thinking. We need to encourage students to come out in the open and say what you feel like saying. That's how
yeah,
revolutionaries and social freedom fighters, they were all brought up in that kind of a scenario. We need people who can make those breakthroughs, and we need those people to stay in India. They should not. Yeah, I know it's hard. You have to do 20 years of hard work, probably, after which you might be recognized. But you should be ready to give that up for your country. when Chinese and when in Japan they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they didn't just go. I mean, the people stayed back. They proved their mettle. They proved that they can work in their country and bring out the best out of it. We need Indians to change this mentality. Don't go to US. Don't go to UK. Come back. That's what I would say. Stay here. We
Yeah.
have many things here. Why do you need to go there?
You totally brought in a relevant point, Prakashji. Totally brought in a relevant point. Now, Shishirji, closing comments from you. How would you think that the reforms can come in the education system?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of subjects. I think couple things. One is that I think one, we need to be more aware of what we have, and so maybe
Yeah.
a little more self-confidence rather than negativity, or not necessarily self-confidence, but less negativity perhaps, because you can't improve things if you're negative all the time. And number two, as Prakash said, I think a certain certain desire to excel in India. And
Yeah.
I think even if the people who've gone to the US go, I think we are educating so many Indians, and so many more Indians are going to college, that I think even within the people who stay back, there is enough potential to find those who will excel. So I actually think that even with the brain drain, India has the possibility to excel if we provide the opportunities to them to excel. That's one thing. The other thing is that people can go abroad and still support good things happening in India through the internet, because the internet is really allowing people to communicate across borders, and it is allowing people to gain knowledge across borders. For instance, we talked about Indology and anthropology. I might point out today that there are some universities in the US that are telling the truth about, for instance, the Vedic period. There are Indian professors at JNU who are trying to lie, and then there are professors at US universities who are trying to tell the truth. So I want to bring that out to having been in the US, that in spite of this global pressure and this all these global propagandists who are trying to lie, they're truth tellers throughout the world. Some are in India and in small places that we don't know about. Some are in US universities, and some might be at other universities elsewhere in the world. So I think that's the other thing, that through the internet, different people who are seeking the truth can come together and combine their knowledge and also help and support each other. So that is another possibility. So I think I'll end it there. That let's end on a note of optimism. Let's try and use every opportunity to improve things. Let's use every occasion to get the right message out. But also let's have some optimism so we can have the energy to change things for the better.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Shishirji, for that closing remarks. It was a wonderful discussion. We discussed on all aspects that we could in this education system. And if you have any comments, or you think if you don't agree with any views, you can post it as comments and we can reply back to you as soon as possible. So that's it from us. Thanks a lot and have a wonderful weekend, guys. And thanks a lot to all our panelists who spared their wonderful time and joined the debate. Thanks a lot, Shishirji and Prakashji, to you for joining this debate.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for
yeah, and thanks a lot to the viewers. Yeah, okay then.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye bye. Okay.